Hello Thrivers and our subscribers, even Maria Schreiber. Welcome back to Thrive the Matrix. I know it's been a hot minute since I posted. I'm glad to be back. On this channel, we tackle life outside the matrix after we've been red-pilled, in reality, dealing with the controllers and the narcs in our life. Today, we're going to talk about a very controversial topic. Maybe others have covered it. I haven't come across a video exactly like it, but we'll add to the dialogue if that is the case. Today, I want to posit the theory that we might even need to or should empathize, sympathize, and have compassion for the narc or controller in our life. Now, I get it. I know some of you are thinking of that narc spectrum. We have a 1 to 10 and you've got a malignant 12. They may have their own moments of grace. Maybe some of it applies. If it doesn't, let it fly. But I think this really comes into play when you have the low to mid-range controllers or narcs. That's when I think this tends to kick in the most. The reason I posed this question is as I was thinking about a topic for my next video, I really thought about the fact that NPD is narcissistic personality disorder, and there are maladaptive behaviors associated with that. But there are other disorders with maladaptive behaviors that we have come to better understand, destigmatize, like alcohol abuse, drug abuse, anorexia, bulimia, depression. I don't know if that classifies as a disorder. Again, I'm not a clinician, but these are all things that, our view of them has changed over time, and someone shouldn't have to be ashamed of having that disorder. The focus should be on their capacity to recover, right? What if we applied the same thing to those that have narcissistic personality disorder? Of course, they're going to be maladaptive behaviors. They have a disorder. And if they didn't have a disorder, they probably wouldn't do most of what they do or behave the way they do. Now, I'm not suggesting that we remove accountability altogether. I'm going to give you a few examples of times that I have sympathized, empathized, and I wanted to give you, and stick around to the end, a reason why it may be beneficial to look at it in this light. I really want to see in the comments what you think. I think my opinion is going to be unpopular, but you never know. So first example, if you have a narc in your life, whether it's a family member, a friend, a coworker, or spouse, and for these videos, and this video, I'm not thinking of anyone in particular, you're going to run into a situation where it's time to sit down and talk feelings, right? Maybe something happened between the two of you and you want to share how it impacted you and get their thoughts. You may have gotten them to sit down. Maybe you have to start the conversation, but instead of asking how they're doing and asking how they're feeling, you can almost see them, their facial expression, their eyes dart a little bit. It's almost like something's brewing in there. They're trying to articulate a feeling. They're trying to articulate a response, and they just can't do it. But you can see they're making a good faith effort to do that. And it's easy to understand why. If you're not able to self-reflect, if you're not able to empathize with others, and you have a disorder that may have been caused by the fact that your emotions were never recognized, discussed, acknowledged, or even felt, of course you're going to be sitting there like it's the 10th round of spelling bee and you're 2 away from winning. And that's a time when, I can appreciate that the narc is willing to sit and listen to what you have to say, and that they're willing to try to respond. And it's very visceral and very jarring to see that they just really can't do it. And you tend to move in these situations from anger and frustration, although some of that's still there, really just to sadness and some sympathy for them. Another example is, I tend to like to think in my mind, I don't think narcs wake up every morning and twirl their mustache or $1 million, like Dr. Evil with a plan to dominate the world, although they certainly want to dominate those around them. But they're dominating those around them because they have a disorder that comes with maladaptive behavior. So and I don't know if I'm probably dating myself, I'm 44 years old, I'll just come out with it, you can probably tell. But there was a song by an artist named Poe, and I've never forgotten this line from the song, and it was, "You can't talk to a psycho like a normal human being." And I'm not suggesting those with NPD are psychos, otherwise my entire argument or what I'm positing would completely fall apart. But I think sometimes we interact with them as if we're interacting with just another normal, run-of-the-mill average person without NPD. People with NPD are at a deficit. Think about the fact that they carry so much shame and offload it onto us and how it can feel to carry that all the time, they're continually trying to climb out of a shame hole, okay? And the way they do that is unacceptable, and we need to hold them accountable. And we also have to have radical acceptance that they're never gonna know it or recognize it. But I can tell you how having compassion and sympathy in this situation and the prior example can come in handy. Maybe personalize or not personalize the behaviors as much as we do. When we recognize that they have a disorder and this maladaptive behavior we're witnessing has more to do with a deficiency that they can barely treat, let alone recognize, and that's awful, right? I mean, imagine if we flipped the coin and we had some of those other disorders, and there are people that, you know, can't identify that they have it or don't want to admit that they have it or struggle with it or never recover from it, but there's compassion there for them and they're not irredeemable. And I think in a lot of these videos, because narcissists do a lot of diabolical, dastardly, manipulative things, they tend to be cast as a villain right from the jump. But I would challenge you, is there a way that having some compassion and sympathy be a way not to let them off the hook, but to understand why they do what they do, adapt to it outside the matrix, and also personalize it less? Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that every narc is irredeemable, impossible to save, beyond our efforts, doomed forever to be a narcissist? Do you think that they do have the capacity to change? I think they do. What do we think about that middle of the road, right? They're not so bad as to cause complete destruction and chaos, you know, and they're not those maybe on YouTube that have said, hey, I think something's up. I'm gonna go talk to somebody about it. My gosh, I found out I was a narcissist. Hey, I can turn this into some good, share my experience, and speak to that point of view to help people better understand. I'm really talking about the people in the middle, right? Is there an argument to be made that because it's a disorder, the behavior should be not necessarily tolerated, but understood with some compassion? And do we think that will help us personalize the behavior less? If you stuck around till the end of the video, that's how I think it could be handy for us. We're not letting them off the hook. And I know I shared the example about the conversation on feelings or dumping or projecting, deflecting shame onto us, but are there any examples you can think of when you watched a narc and thought, wow, I'm starting to understand that this is a human being with a disorder and not a Disney villain? I don't think anything's ever black or white. I think that's why I wanted to talk about this and think it's an interesting topic to come back to YouTube. And until we meet again, Thrivers, soon to be or already subscribers, and yes, you, Maria Shriver, stay up.